Hey, what is up? This is Hipster George Washington with Hipster Codes and for another video. So I want to start a series on creating like a third-person shooter type of a game, but really starting out with drawing line traces at first, which is what we're going to cover today, adding randomness to those, which is what I want to cover in a future video, and like how there's some different ways you can go about that. So I'm in a third person with Unreal Engine 5.6 with the third person template with no variant. Now it's going to look a little bit different from previous versions before 5.6, and they added new templates where you have all these green things, but most of it should be pretty similar. So the third person character that you can find here in third person blueprints, and third person blueprints, and the third person character comes with a bunch of input actions. If you need a video and input actions, I can make another one of those sometime. Just say something in the comments and I might prioritize one of them. However, there's a ton that are already out there. So you can either ignore this part and just like have some sort of other input trigger what we're about to do whenever you actually shoot the gun and do the line trace. But I'm going to use the input actions that have already been created for us in the template. So we have this input, you have actions, and you have a bunch here. I literally just like to take one that's like jump, where it's just a trigger, and I'm going to duplicate it, and instead of jump, I'm going to call it shoot. So we have input action underscore shoot. Let me make sure it all looks good. So it's triggered by being pressed and released. That's fine, because that gives us the ability to do like, rapid fire or automatic fire or something like that down the road. So that's actually a good thing. We're going to leave it there. We're only going to do single action firing here, semi-automatic firing here in this video. And we're not even going to do any sort of aiming or anything like that in this video or the next video. That might be for something down the road if people really like these videos. But we have this input action that we can now call here in our third person graph. So we can say here, IA shoot. We can go and get this. We can see whenever it's triggered or whenever it's started or canceled. With this, I think we want it to be on started. So on started, what we're going to do is we're going to do our logic. I'm going to create it all here in the event graph, so it's going to be all nasty. We can later condense it to some sort of a function, but the event graph just gives us a bunch of space to work with, so it's not going to be a super clean bit of code here. But I just want to walk through the logic. So we need to draw a line trace out from this started. So we're going to draw a line trace. And then you have different options here. You have line trace by channel, multi-line trace. We're going to do single. Line trace by channel, by profile, or for objects. Now, these you can go about these however you wish. If you want to really get into creating a specific trace channels, you might be able to save a little bit of computing power. I usually just do for objects, honestly, and with these you can go and create an array of object types. If you do the other ones, you can use either pre-existing channels or profiles, collision profiles, or pre-existing trace channels. You can create your own trace channel. But for this, I'm just going to use for objects. And so what it's going to do is we're going to have a start point, an end point for a line trace, and it's going to look for specific objects. And here you can make an array. And this is an array of enums. So luckily, we don't have to do anything except click what we want to be traced for in the dropdown. We're going to shoot at other pawns. Let's have pawns be what we're shooting at as well. So we can create an enemy here in a minute as well. So triggered, we want to make sure that we connect that to the execution pin. Now I am going to we can ignore self. Let's do make an array, and let's do self. Just to make sure. We shouldn't be triggering ourselves, but if we ever do for some reason, we'll make sure that we just ignore ourselves. So we do want to draw a debug type. Now you can draw it for 1 frame. For a duration that then you will select how long the duration is, which is here in this drop down. So that's for the draw time, or persistent. So it just lasts the entire time. Let's do for duration. 5 seconds seems good. Now the line that's going to be drawn out is going to be red. Then whenever it hits something that is within our array, it's going to then continue on, but it's going to turn green. So the second half of it, or the second portion of it, will be green. And then out of that line trace, we're going to get this out hit structure that we'll work with in a second. we'll be able to look at what we hit. But we need to know these two pieces of information here. And these are what always tripped me up whenever I was learning this and trying to do it on my own. So we need a start. So what you want is for it to really start at the gun. But the problem is if you have a third person character, here, let's look at it in a second. If you have a third person character and you want them to shoot in the middle of the screen, the direction of the gun, which we don't have right now, we don't have a mesh or animations for a gun, for some sort of a rifle or pistol, but it's going to be in a different position than what the camera is aiming at. So actually for this, what we want is for it to come out of the camera. So we want to get this starting location of our follow camera, which is the name of the camera in this default third-person character. And we want to get the world location. Okay, so that part's pretty easy. But then this is where we figure out, okay, well, where do we want it to end? You can't make it literally infinite. There's not enough computing power to do that. So you have to have some sort of an end. And so what we want it to do is we want it to go straight out of the camera in the direction of the middle of the camera, and then we want it to hit something out there in the future, in the distance. And so we need the forward vector from the camera. So we're going to get the camera. We're going to get the forward vector. This is going to point us in the right direction, but then we have to multiply it. So we're going to multiply this by a float. The great thing about Unreal 5 is you don't have to worry about this. You can actually turn this vector parameter into a float, so you can multiply by a float. And then we can give it some massive number. So I usually go, or if you want some sort of fall off on your bullet, you can not make it as long. This also works for previous line traces for other videos I've done. So this doesn't even have to necessarily be a bullet firing. This can be for some sort of interaction they have with the character. But what I want to do in a future video is to do some sort of randomness in your trace as well. So we can just do 1,000. It might need to be like 5,000, but let's see what it looks like at first. So we're going to go out 1,000, and I'm going to show you what's wrong with this right off of the bat. We're going to plug it into the end, and we're going to see why it's going to be all wonky. What did I have this trigger on? Oh, I haven't added, this is my bad. So we have the input action. I did not add it to the input mapping context. If you've been watching this video, you're probably like, hipster, what are you doing? Make sure you add it. So let's add our IA shoot to the input mapping context. Again, if you don't know what this is, you just find some way for this to trigger, right? However you want to do it, or watch some sort of input action video, or just, instead of doing input action, you could go here and just say, I don't know, left control, left. I don't know where left click is. But you could just put it on some sort of arbitrary keyboard command. Now that's just bad code right there, but it'll get the job done while you're testing this out. I don't think we need anything here, so now it should shoot. So now, well, why? Yeah, where are we going? We're going in the right direction, and it's coming straight from the camera. So let's go here, and I'm going to click F8 so that we can go out, and we can see it's being drawn from the camera, but it's being drawn down into basically, I think it's like 0 is where it's going. And the reason is what we need to do is factor in the location of the camera as well. So we got the forward trajectory. That's a tough word. But we need to add it to... What happened? Okay. Dang it. Sorry. I was opening another project and I ignore that. I apologize. And we need to add it to the get world location. So we have get world location, the forward trajectory from the camera. We're going to add these two together. So we're going to get this output here, and then we're going to add this to the end of our line trace. And now you see we should be going somewhat in the right direction. I'm going to move the camera to the right so we can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to move the... What am I wanting to move? I need to move the boom. So we're going to move the boom. I'm going to move the socket offset. No, I want to move the target offset. So we're going to do this a little bit. I need to bring it in a little bit, so let's bring it in. Let's bring it in, and let's move it up a little bit so it's a little bit higher. See, there we go. So now if we click F8, we can see that I'm still in control of the character. It's drawing out toward the middle of the screen. And we could actually put a little dot with our UI. Maybe I'll do that in a future video so you can see where you're shooting, because that's the intention. You could put the reticle. Okay, I messed up with the target arm. That isn't the right way to go about it. But I just wanted to make sure that it looked right. Maybe we want socket offset. I think that's what we wanted. We wanted a socket offset. Instead of a target offset. Yeah, this is a little bit better. But it gets the job done. So it's shooting the line trace right in the middle of the screen. So you could put a reticle there and it's going to go from the camera there. Now, the problem with this that you would realize whenever you get your actual shooting animation going and you get your actual like gun mesh going, that if you have something that is not being hit with both the rifle going forward and the camera going forward, you have to actually go with what the rifle is going forward. It works whenever you look at it. So this isn't a perfect solution. This is actually a really good line trace video. But it's sort of the basis of how we would go about creating some sort of a shooting a rifle type of video in the future. So we have this going. Now, the one thing that I also want to make sure that I hit on is this out hit structure. And what is this out hit structure? Let's break hit result. So it's a structure. Get a bunch of information for what was actually hit by the line, if anything. Now, if anything is an important portion because you could always use this return value. If it hits nothing and it just goes off into empty space and it didn't hit anything, this value is going to be false. So you could always create a branch here and say only if we hit something, then we're going to worry about the out hit structure, because then it's going to contain some information that we actually want. The information that I always like to use is the hit actor. You can eventually use like the point and stuff like that, trace end and trace start. I haven't really done that. Component is sometimes helpful. Really the impact point, because if you ever want to draw, like use some sort of, like have a smoke spark or a blood spurt or something, you need to know exactly where it hit in the world. But I like to get the actor, right? Because then you can get information from the actor. But right now, we don't have any other pawns, so we actually aren't getting any information from the structures. Here, let's go here and put a print statement. So if we hit something, let's print the name of the actor. Notice we're not getting anything printed in the top left of the screen. So, what do we do from here? Well, let's create another pawn. I'm going to just put another third-person character out there. Why not? It is a pawn. It counts. So you would, have some sort of enemy base class. But for this, let's see if I can hit it. Yep, see? Now for this, if you see, we're hitting the third-person character in the top left of the screen. So this is the basis. And look how we go. We have a red line. We see the hit point. It is interacting with the collision. Sorry. It's interacting with the capsule module right here. So that's what it's actually hitting on. Now, this is a thing where if you really need it to hit on not the collision capsule, the capsule module, what is it? Why am I not saying words? The capsule components, then you might need to do a trace channel. So I leave that decision up to you. If you need a further video in depth about that, it's something I'm willing to do. I just want to make sure that I could talk about it off the top of my head, and I always have to reorient my brain whenever I do that. So leave a comment down below if that's something you're interested in. But this is basically the beginning of getting your line trace going. The thing that I really wanted to get to is adding randomness to this line trace. Has a couple of different ways. Some are better than others, and I want to show you my preferred way in the next video. But hopefully you found this helpful. We can do a line trace. Again, the idea is eventually you would have a reticle in the middle of the screen. You would have some sort of animation where he's aiming, and then you can fire, and then it's going to fire in the middle of the screen so you know what you're shooting at. And then we have a green line trace after it's hit so you can even see what's behind them. Yeah, so hopefully you found this helpful. Leave a comment, leave a like, and we'll see you in the next one.